what kind of leadership skills did you have to learn?
Gosh, I was the worst, honestly, for so long in my career. Like I got thrust into leadership roles fairly young. I didn't have kids. I wasn't even married. I didn't really know what it was to be an adult. And I think I was thrust into that position, and I had to learn a lot really quickly. Just because I didn't have kids doesn't mean that it's not important for that person to take a day or an afternoon to go pick their kids up from school. I had to learn to also not treat everybody the same, but to give them what they needed. And if I'm giving everybody what they need, then that's what equity really is like.
All right, welcome to another episode of Relocation Leader. Host Zac Turbes, and we have with us Philip Nguyen, the Director of Global Client Development at NEI Global Relocation. And a special guest with us today, we have Ben Cross, the CEO of GLOMO, and you might have seen him on the Love and Relo podcast. So welcome, guys.
Hey, thanks. Appreciate y'all having me. This is really exciting.
Yeah, we're excited as well.
So for those who don't know you, Ben, would you want to give a short introduction, who you are and what you've been doing the last 10, 15 years?
Yeah, so I got started in the relocation business, working at Pods, actually. Got a job in the call center. It was the first job I could get, and worked my way up through the moving industry, taking various sales roles, inside and outside sales. And then recently, about 4 years ago, started my own company, started GLOMO. It was initially designed as a consultancy for women-owned and minority-owned service provider companies in the global mobility space, helping them get their seat at the table and win business. And it's actually morphed and grown into a recruitment firm that helps global mobility professionals find opportunities with phenomenal companies. We like to say that we introduce transformative talent to amazing careers. So that's what we do. And then we also dabble in some things like mergers and acquisitions and video production, which you've seen kind of the podcast and things like that.
Nice. And you're from Texas.
I'm born in Texas, grew up in New York, been back to Texas 3 different occasions. Hopefully this time to stay. It's the longest tenure I've had since I was 6 years old. I've been there 3 years now, loving it.
Nice. And Philip, just, for those who haven't seen your wildly successful podcast before this, do you want to give a short summation of kind of who you are, what you do here at NEI?
Yeah. So my name is Philip Nguyen. I started out on our international team, but now I'm currently the Director of Global Client Development. So I focus on the emerging market. So defined as any company with 5,000 or fewer employees. So that's really my bread and butter. But yeah, like the title says, it's international. So I get to talk to a lot of people from a lot of different time zones. So
nice. So I'm curious, Ben, how did you fall into, Pods, relocation? How did you get to where you're at right now? And how do you even define where you're at?
It's sheer desperation. After college, my girlfriend, who's now my wife, we were looking for a job. We had just moved to the Dallas area. I was living with my mom. I was like, I need a job. I need to get out of here, right? And she looked in the classified ads, the wanted ads, right? And found an opportunity in a call center. And she said, I'm going to go out for this job. They're having a job fair. And I said, can I go too? She's like, no, get your own job. And I was like, well, I'm going. We both need jobs here, right? So we show up, we get the job, we pass the test. They give us 2 opportunities because we were wearing a suit. And we got a chance working in the call center there. And honestly, it was really about making the best of that opportunity, just honing my craft, whatever that craft was. In this case, it was working in a call center, selling long distance moving over the phone, and just becoming the best at it I could possibly become, and trying to get out of that on the phone job as fast as possible and get into, some sort of a management role or leadership role where I could be a little more strategic.
So how do you get from, I'm always sort of interested in people's stories, like you're a CEO of, a company now, and you have some pretty good reach, like you said, you have lots of relationships in our industry. Sort of like what drove you to, get into management, right? But then also to not stop there,
Yeah. You touched on it. We talk about our 3 R's: reach, relevance, and relationships. And really for us, that's our currency. That is what social currency is. And that's what we trade on today at GLOMO. We trade on our reach, relevancy, and relationships. And fortunately, through the Love and Relo podcast, that's really been the fruits of a long career in this business. And it's been beautiful to go through that. But I think really what propelled me throughout my career was just maybe I should say this, but I hated every job I had, and I always wanted something better, And so I was always like, how do I stack this opportunity and get to the next level, And I was never really satisfied. I always thought I had more to give. I always thought I could bring more to the table than just being a call center rep or just being a supervisor of a sales team, just managing accounts and not going out winning business, or just being in the moving industry. I thought I had way more knowledge to offer, way more curiosity about global relocation and all the facets of it, right? Than just being pigeonholed into one thing. And so I really started my company because I desired a job and a company that I loved, and I wanted to create that for myself.
Do you find those same tendencies even now, or do you
I still hate my job? No, I love my job because it is what I want it to be. So I finally found that opportunity. It was funny because people take these pre-employment assessments, right? DISC profiles or PIs or CIs or whatever, and I took this culture index CI, and the guy looked at the chart. He's like, your chart is crazy. Like, you're a 10 over here and you're a 1 over here. You're like really whacked out. He's like, you're basically unemployable. So it makes a lot of sense that you'd be an entrepreneur because you're basically unemployed. And I was like, that explains my whole career, the friction I've had in every role, because I always wanted something different,
When you first set out to create GLOMO, was it always a vision that you had in your mind, or was it something that you as you kind of grew within the industry, you saw a niche and you kind of dabbled, like, should I go for it? Should I not?
Yeah, it's a really good question. No, I had no idea, honestly, what it was. A couple things happened. I was in my job, but I wanted more, right? I was kind of unsatisfied in the scope of what I was doing and the opportunity that I had in that role. And I wanted more. And I was like, I need to have my own thing. I felt that for sure. And I had a lot of creative energies that weren't being utilized as well. And so I first went out to go buy a company. I went out to go buy a tiny little moving company. I was like, let me find some little moving company up in Detroit, or some little freight company, or some little, some small, something that I could afford. I didn't have any money really, so I had to get an SBA loan. So I'm looking at these, kind of transportation and trucking based jobs, because that's what I'd come from. And I was like, oh, if I could get me a little moving company, maybe I could go to NEI and say, hey guys, let me do some moves for you. So I had all these relationships, right? And I went and looked at these opportunities, and my wife, and this is like the blessing that is wives, right? Like, they always have this wisdom, right? And this intuition, and she's like, Ben, you don't even know how to change your own oil. Why would you buy a trucking company? Like, you go to the warehouse and they make fun of you because you don't like to load boxes and trucks and you're lazy. Why would you buy a moving company? You're gonna be on a truck in the end of June trying to figure it out. Like, you're gonna die on that truck. What are you doing? And I was like, you know what, honey, you're right. Like, this isn't for me. But I knew I needed to get my own thing. And I said, well, what do I really love? And I think when you look for your purpose in life, find the thing that you would do for free that someone would also pay you for. And whatever the intersection of those two things are, that's like your purpose.
That second one is gold, like what people pay.
And what people pay for. Yeah, because there's a lot of things I love. Like, I love doing pottery. I love to coach and mentor young people. I love to do a lot of things. But the one thing that people would pay me for is being a connector. And so I started doing something, honestly, just out of the goodness of my heart, just something that came naturally for me, is I started making introductions for my friends. So I was working for a moving company and I was selling in the course of that. So I'd sell to, corporations or, relocation management company like an NEI, right? And I had this great relationship, but I could only sell them one thing. I could only sell them moving. But they buy so many things. They buy so many services, right? And I knew all these phenomenal entrepreneurs out there that were fantastic companies, but just didn't have those same relationships that I had. And I was like, well, let me introduce you real quick to Randy Wilson over at NEI. She's phenomenal. You'll love her. She'll love you. You guys can do great things together. And I did. And I started doing that with my friends, and they started sending me checks. And they're like, that was a very valuable introduction you just made. We've closed a lot of business together. We've done some really great things. I didn't even realize they were going to pay me for it, you know?
Mhm.
And the first day you go to your mailbox and you see a check in there and you're like, I didn't even do this for the money. I did this because I just want to help a friend. But now I'm realizing, wait, there's a business here,
Mhm.
and in that first year that I started GLOMO in June of 2020, incorporated just on the side, just to have a place to put some of this mailbox money and stuff. So I made like 54 grand that year on the side. And I'm like, this isn't quit your job money, but it shows that there's a proof of concept here. There's product market fit, and this can be seed money to kind of bless something going forward,
Mhm.
So how did you take it from that to now you have your own staff, you know, you're responsible for payroll and all that stuff, and you have a vision for the future of GLOMO. Like how did you do that?
You never forget that first opportunity that you're given. And I'm sure if I asked, Randy and Kate, they'd say the same thing, or any entrepreneur, that first client that trusts you with their business, sometimes even when it's not a real thing yet,
Mhm.
and they trust you enough just off of who you are as a person to give you their business and their trust and their money to do something. And I had two clients at that point who were who I was doing like little side projects for. And I said, listen, I think my time has run its course at my current job, and I want to go out and do my own thing. If I quit my job, would you hire me for half of what I'm making today? Would you hire me for half of what I'm making today? And they both said, yeah. And I was like, okay, cool. So now I knew my floor was covered, right? I knew my mortgage was covered. I had a wife, two kids, a house. I mean, I knew that was covered, but I also knew, hey, if I could go get two more clients, I could double my income.
Mhm.
So my floor was covered, but my ceiling was unlimited,
Mhm.
And so I was like, okay, I think I have a business now. And so that's what I did. And so I went in and I put my notice in at my company and sold my house, moved to Texas, started my own business. And it was unbelievable. I'm very blessed and fortunate that it happened that way.
So over the course of the last 4 years, obviously it's grown a lot. Um, what would you say you're most proud of throughout that process?
I think I'm most proud of the people who trusted me along the way. So the clients that trust me with their clients and their business, because it's their reputation on the line. My employees who have maybe quit a job to come work for me
Mhm.
and entrusted me with their career, their livelihood, their families. Like, that's big. There's like 3 moments in starting a business where it just gets more real. It's not when you like really incorporate, because anybody can incorporate. You can have a little Pinterest account, make sweaters on the side and incorporate, right?
Mhm.
But it's when that first client trusts you and they pay you to do something. You don't really have a business until somebody pays you to do something. Um, and it's when someone else comes and works with you, and now they're joining their team, and you're like, and then you meet their family and you're like, whoa, like
Mhm.
you're paying your bills and like your kids' tuition, and like those are some major moments. So those are the things I think I'm most proud of, is the fact that people trust me.
Yeah. So, the podcast is called Relocation Leader. Sometimes we kind of shade towards the relocation.
Yeah.
Sometimes we shade towards the leader. I'm curious, through your exploits, what kind of leadership skills did you have to learn? You know, maybe some the easy way, some the hard way. Does anything pop into your mind?
Gosh, I was the worst, honestly, for so long in my career. Like I got thrust into leadership roles fairly young, because, you know, I think because I was really good at my job, people made me a boss. But people who are good individual contributors aren't always good leaders.
Yeah.
Just because they're proficient at sales doesn't mean they'd be a good sales manager, for instance, right? And so I was a sales supervisor fairly young in my life, probably 20, 24, something like that, right? And so I had a team of 15 to 25 people that worked for me, right? And I'm very young. I didn't have kids. I wasn't even married. I didn't really know what it was to be an adult, so I was still kind of messing around. And I think I was thrust into that position, and I had to learn a lot really quickly. And you learn through making mistakes. and through your failures. Frankly, you learn a lot more through your failures than your successes, you know? And so I had to learn to be mature. I had to learn to give empathy, you know, just because I didn't have kids doesn't mean that it's not important for that person to take a day or an afternoon to go pick the kids up from school or go take them to the doctor or whatever. You know, I had to learn to also not treat everybody the same, but to give them what they needed. And if I'm giving everybody what they need, then that's what equity really is like. And it's not just being like by the handbook and saying, oh, you've got 2 absences, that's a first written warning. You got 4 absences, that's a second written warning. 5 is a fine, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Because that's the way initially I was kind of brought up, but I realized that you learn the rules and then you learn how to make exceptions, you know, treat people as individuals. Because if you treat people as individuals, then they will give you that discretionary effort. And as leaders, I think it's our job really to get 110% out of people. And if you just manage people by the book, so to speak, you're lucky to get 80%. And you might get to 90 if you whip that horse real hard, it'll run fast to a point and then it'll die. You know, so it's like, how do we inspire people to be their best selves? And that's what I'm really excited about at GLOMO. I actually interviewed somebody yesterday, and they're like, why is GLOMO a great place to work? I'm like, first of all, I'm biased. So you should probably go ask the people that work here because, yeah, I don't know if, you know, but I'll tell you what I hope it's the kind of place that a person could come and be their best self professionally and personally. That's why I created it for myself. And I hope that's safe for everybody else.
Yeah, I think that's great insight. I mean, there's a famous quote by Mike Tomlin, head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, where he says, I'm going to treat everyone fair, but I'm not going to treat everyone the same.
Yeah.
Wow. So, and that's something that's kind of stuck with me. So it's very much so along the same lines of what you're saying. So
yeah, he's like, the standard is the standard.
Yeah.
I mean, Mike Tomlin's just a great one.
Yeah.
He's the kind of person you get out of bed, want to run through a brick wall. It's like he's, that type of person. And I love working for inspirational type people. But the other thing I think I learned too, because I'm an inspirational type, which means personality wise, I can be kind of up and down. I can be real hot and real on fire and real excited, but I can also be like down in the dumps and ticked off when we don't win or something happens, you know. I kind of be hot and cold. And I realized that my people can't have that. They need consistency. And I think as a leader, we really need to be sensitive to the energy and the vibes that we're putting off, because that energy permeates throughout the office. So if we're optimistic and we have a winning attitude, our people will key off that. But if we don't, then that's bad, you know. And people need to know which kind of bent cross they're going to get that day. You know, they can't get surprised by that, you know, because then that breaks trust. Yeah. And I think trust is really huge.
One thing that I really believe in is belief itself. And as someone who's an entrepreneur who's really putting yourself out there, starting a company, I mean, it's not just a business. Like it's really your livelihood. Like you're talking about, I have a wife and kids and a house and cars that I have to pay for. So can you speak to that belief a little bit in yourself? And then also what does showing your team a little bit of belief, what has that done for your team?
Wow. You know, I was just talking yesterday with a dear friend of mine, Jose Botley, the founder and CEO of Versal Global. And we did something for each other early in our entrepreneurial journey. And we believed in each other. And one of my favorite quotes is, the best gift you can give someone is to believe in them. We can all think about that coach, that teacher, our parent, somebody that believed in us. Maybe before we weren't quite even it yet, they saw that thing in us. And then we saw it because they saw it and because we believed in them. And belief is transferable, kind of like you're saying, you know. It's like if I believe in it and you believe in me, then you believe in it, you know. And so it's transferable. And I think so. I think it's super powerful. And I think that's one thing that honestly being a person of faith also helps, because you have a lot of practice believing, you know. And believing is more than half the battle. Yeah. And then it's a cool thing because when I believe in something and you believe in something, it becomes real. Right. And I told Hosea that, you know, yesterday, I'm like, you know, you told me I need to go out and be an entrepreneur, and I believed in you. and you believed in what I was creating. And then when we both believe, now all of a sudden it's a real thing. If one person believes, people are like, he's crazy. But if two people believe, it's like, oh, it must be real. So yeah, I try to believe in stuff, try to pass that confidence on. I think confidence is just an expression of how much you believe in something.
Mm.
And yeah, I see that in y'all, in the way that you have confidence in what y'all bring to the table at NEI Global, and I think and I have the same confidence in GLOMO as well.
Can you speak, Ben, to like the need in the age that we all inhabit, like to like put yourself out there? Like, I feel like you've made an entire business on putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you could just kind of speak to, maybe somebody's not as confident as you, or maybe they're not as just naturally outgoing. How can they take steps in the right direction to, get what they need,
Yeah, I think confidence, is really big. It comes, I think that the faith thing, going back to faith, right? If somebody loves you, that helps your confidence a lot, right? If you believe if your parents love you, if other people around you love you, if God loves you, I mean, your confidence is like peaking, right? If you are very clear about whose opinions are important, that also helps your confidence, because there's a lot of opinions being thrust at us this day and age with all the communication that we have, and knowing whose opinion is important is very important. I always believed in myself early on. Generally speaking, I get down on myself quite a bit. I mean, like, let's not get it twisted, but I always felt like I brought a lot to the table, and for a long time people didn't see it. And now people see it, and it's like, oh, it's so obvious. It's like, well, no, you trust me. I've been saying this for a long time. Y'all haven't been listening to me. And frankly, I think I was confident before I had something to be confident about, which caused a lot of conflict in school, caused a lot of conflict with my previous bosses, as I kind of talked about. And then I just kind of, I learned enough to kind of rise to that confidence, so that I actually had something to deliver. But to answer your question about how do people create and put themselves out there, and find the confidence to do that. I post a lot on LinkedIn, for people that don't. I probably post at least once a day. I post very personal stuff. I put myself out there in very, very vulnerable ways. My advice to people is to post like nobody's reading it. Have you heard the saying, dance like nobody's watching?
Mm.
I post like nobody's reading.
That's really good.
Yeah. I post like nobody's reading. Because, well, one, it's true. I have 17,000 connections. I might get 20 likes on something. Nobody's reading it. Like, literally, nobody is reading it, right?
Come on.
Yeah, I mean, you know what I'm saying? And I like it that way, because otherwise I probably wouldn't post so much. I'd be nervous, so please don't read my stuff. So post like nobody's reading it. And then the people who may not like it, doesn't matter. People also, they don't care about you as much as you think they do. They're not really checking for you. Like, I do panel discussions and stuff, and I look out, and 80% of the people are on their phone. They really don't care. What time's lunch? Do I smell? What's my boss thinking of me? I got to call home. That's what they're thinking about. They're not really thinking about what I'm saying. So that takes a lot of the pressure off. And I think the last thing I would say is, whenever you speak and you put yourself out there, do it for the good of others and not for the glorification of yourself, right? So if you make if the topic's not, hey, I'm so great, I just hit a new record today, but it's, hey, this happened to me, and in case you're going through it right now, I just want you to know everything's gonna be okay, and this is how I got through it. I hope it helps you. Love you. That's how I roll. And if you don't like that, I don't know what's wrong with you.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of pressure off of me.
So I want to hear about your TEDx experience.
Oh yeah.
Tell us about that.
That was probably that was the most nerve-wracking thing I've ever done. It was the most I've ever prepared for. So I really don't care. I don't like to prepare for things. I don't like to rehearse. I don't like to practice a lot. I like to be kind of off the cuff. I practice being off the cuff. That's my thing. So this was wild. It was 18 minutes, and we rehearsed every 2 weeks. I had to construct a narrative and be a lot more thoughtful and intentional than I'd ever been about something. I didn't have a talk going into it. I was presented, mine was a little backwards. I was presented with an opportunity before I had a talk. And you know, people ask me, how'd you get, I've applied so many times. I got lucky. I really did. I straight up got lucky. I think there's something about being open to opportunities and just being open to people. When you see people, you say hello, you engage with them, you see what, you know, ask questions and find out what's going on, and opportunities just come to you. And then when the opportunity comes to you and she said, well, you should talk. And my first gut reaction was no. I was blurted out no. And I had to stop myself. I was like, no, hold on. This moment's been prepared for you. This is your opportunity. You need to take this moment. You need to receive the blessing and the opportunity, and you need to just say yes, and you figure it out, you know? And so I said yes, and I figured it out. And I said, okay, now what's my talk going to be? You know, I'm thinking about it, and it ended up being about relevance, and it ended up trying to tell people just about how I went from basically being an outsider to being an insider in this industry, this beautiful industry that we have, where I go into a conference and it feels like one enormous hug. But before, it felt like the first day of kindergarten, being a kid from Texas in a new school in New York, talking funny, not knowing the difference between the Texas Rangers and the New York Rangers, and just sticking out. Might have had a mullet, talk funny, you know, and feeling like a total outcast.
Those are back in style. So if you could go back to kindergarten,
again, dude. Never, that is the most triggering hairstyle. Never again. No, I cut the mullet and never again. Yeah, but also there's a lot of beauty that came from that struggle, because if I didn't have the practice being an outsider and I didn't get comfortable, people say be comfortable being uncomfortable. Well, I mean, that's the most uncomfortable thing, is being in a room full of people you don't know and having to present yourself, and they're all friends already and they all know each other, and they're all, and if everybody knows everybody and they don't know you, then how do you feel? You feel like a nobody. And I felt like that a lot of times throughout my school career. I felt like that the first time I walked into a conference in a professional setting. I felt like that at every new job I went to, every new role I got. But without that feeling, I would never be here. So I think it also taught me to not try to fit in, but to do my own thing and just do it with like gusto, and let other people come to me in a way. Yeah, I think a lot of times we look at what's popular out there and then we go try to imitate it, but then we just a knockoff of somebody else. We're just the second best, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, no, like I don't want to be, no offense, I don't want to be Pepsi to your Coke. You know what I mean? I want to be Sprite or something like that. You know, I want to be totally different, you know? I want to be boba tea. Boba tea's slamming. I don't know if y'all drink boba tea.
I'm Vietnamese.
Vietnamese iced coffee with the boba.
Love that.
That is, yes, rocket fuel. So anyway, that's what I want to be.
Yeah. I can relate to that. I went to 6 different elementary schools.
Yes.
So when you're talking about walking into a classroom of established friend groups where you have to kind of present yourself,
Yes.
and then instead of being like, I want to be friends with this one particular person and going forward, it's more like, this is me, this is who I am. And then your people will gravitate towards you.
And people want to categorize you, right?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, did you ever get the what are you question?
Oh, every single day.
Yeah. Right. And because people try to put you in their box of understanding.
Human. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm human. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But people do that with GLOMO. Like, what is GLOMO? So what do you do? Like, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, we do consulting. Okay, but what does that mean? Oh, we help women-owned, minority-owned service provider companies. Oh, but what exactly? Like, and they'll ask you because they can't figure out what box in their brain to put you in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no box. Like, just I'm me. Like, don't put me in a box. That's your problem, not mine. You know. So, and I always tell my team, because my team gets frustrated because my friends are asking me like what we do, or I talked to somebody at a conference and they didn't understand what we do, and isn't that a problem? I'm like, no, our clients know what we do. They wouldn't pay us if they didn't know what we do. Our clients know what we do. Everybody doesn't have to know.
So I'm curious, have you given any thought to the future of GLOMO, future of Love and Relo, future
every
of the relocation industry?
Yeah, every day. Future GLOMO, I want to grow. And the question is, what's the most responsible way to do that? We had 4 business verticals in our little company, and we were trying to do too much. And I think we need to really shrink down that to probably 2 and figure out who we really want to be, what we really want to own and just dominate and be good at. Shrink that down to 2 and double down on those things. So we're going to be doing that. We feel like there's a lot of market share that we can continue to grab from a recruitment and consulting standpoint in the global mobility space, both domestically and internationally. We've placed leaders in Europe, and we'd like to continue doing that. So we're gonna grow that way. We're adding 2 team members probably the next month, which is exciting. Yeah, we're expanding our office space as well, picking up another few hundred square feet, baby steps, right? But so we're doing that, and then I think after that, we're also going to expand into verticals that are similar, but different. So maybe tax and accounting, maybe transportation and logistics, right? We've dabbled in some of those areas, but kind of really probably hire subject matter experts in those areas and kind of really go after them. Because, we are in a niche industry, right? Global mobility, I mean, it touches a lot of stuff, but the relocation industry is fairly niche. I mean,
That was part 1 of a 2-part discussion with Ben Cross of Love and Relo. Join us back in 2 weeks where we'll go over part 2. Thanks for watching.